Hi guys! Today I am going to work on my August one little word prompt, and like I said last month, my album's getting a little bit chunky, so this month I am just going to work with two of these 3x4 page protectors. That's what I'm going to work with. And what I did was pull out a bunch of old stamps. So this month's prompt is about the stories we tell each other, and I'm gonna stick fairly closely to the way that Ellie responded to the prompt herself. I'm gonna do some stamping on some cards. I haven't actually sat down and done a lot of thinking about these stories just yet. I'm just gonna prep these cards first, and then I'll worry about sort of thinking about those stories over the next week or so, and then I'll finish up my album. But what I wanted to do was look through the stamp sets that I had rather than buy anything new, and I found these three that all have some stamps in them that have something related to stories. So this one says living my story one chapter at a time. There's another one here that says life is made of stories. In this stamp set there's a very small The Story stamp, and there's another stamp here that says a story on the stamp set here. So they're all old previous one little word stamp sets, but I've got enough to do 4 cards, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do 4 stories. I think that's enough. I'm sure there are probably a lot more, but 4 is what I'm going to work with. Hey guys, it's editing future Diane just interjecting in here because I just finished filming my prompts for this month. I'm editing the video and the courier arrived and he bought my August Citrus Twist kits, and there are 2 stamp sets in here totally perfect for this. So this is the stamp set from the actual August Life Crafted kit. This is the Traveler's Notebook add-on stamp. Look at all those story stamps in there. Would have been perfect, never mind. But it was just a reminder that if you're looking for stamps in your stash that have the word story in them, check out any sort of reading sets that you've got. There may well be something appropriate in there. Anyway, back to the video. Once I pulled out these stamps, the other thing that I had in that same sort of stash of one little word stuff were these chipboard shapes. Now I've used some of them, but I have still a lot left over, so I decided I would use those as well. And the way I'm going to format this is I thought about doing the little strip at the top of stamping like Ellie had done as well, and adding a chipboard, but it doesn't leave me a whole lot of room for like writing the stories. So what I'm going to do is each half of this page protector, so each side of the page protector, I'm going to fill up one 3x4 card with the stamping and a chipboard, and then have a blank card that I'm going to do my story on. So I need 4. And I have more than 4 bits of chipboard here, so I think I'm going to make more than 4 cards because I don't know what those stories are yet. So I'm going to make more than 4, and then I will use the appropriate one for whatever story I end up coming up with. So what I've done is I've taken these chipboards and I have picked out a bunch of ink colors to coordinate with the chipboards that I have. And how many have I got here? I've got 8. So I'm going to do 2 cards with each of these stamps on it, one in a different color, and then add the chipboard. So I'm just going to quickly do that with you. This should be the perfect kind of creative prompt for me, shouldn't it? I do love a little bit of repeat stamping, and usually I think when I repeat stamp I would normally be a little bit more, I want to say precise, but that's definitely not the word to describe my stamping. I guess a bit more structured with my repeat stamping, and that I would have created rows or columns with the stamping. And in Ellie's, she definitely was a little bit more haphazard about it, using kind of ghost stamping as well. And I liked the effect. It was something different from what I would normally do. So that's what I am going to achieve as well. So for these little 3x4 cards, I started out completely stamping, so inking up my stamp and stamping it all over the card, trying to create a little bit of a visual balance so there weren't too many holes and then I went back and did the ghost stamping. So I know that's not particularly how it's supposed to work, but that's how I did it. You can see me stamping off there, so I ink up my stamp, stamp off onto some scrap paper, and then ghost stamp onto the card, and it just gives that nice variation of tone throughout it. So the issue that I had with doing the double stamp directly onto the card, I can see here when I stamp the full ink onto half of the card or off the edge there, it doesn't take off all of the ink, and so then when you go to do the ghost stamping, there's little bits that are full on the edges, and I didn't love that. So that's why I ended up stamping off onto scrap paper and then going back onto the card. So this longer stamp was a little bit more of a challenge to get kind of a nice looking pattern. It becomes a little bit more stripy, and then I had the same kind of issue with this larger stamp. I definitely did not get as many impressions onto the 3x4 card, so I wasn't super happy with the balance of it. I kind of ran out of space before I felt like it was balanced, but I can fill in all of those little gaps with the sort of second stamping, and some of them I tried to do, especially on this one here. The second stamping was not particularly dark at all, so I did try to when I stamp off onto the scrap paper, try and do it in the same place each time, and that paper gets kind of saturated with ink, and so then when I go to stamp onto my card, it's a little bit darker because there's still a little bit more ink left onto the actual stamp itself. Now this one here is the complete opposite problem. The stamp is teeny tiny, and so it took a lot more. You can see me doing a lot more double stamping onto the actual card itself. A lot of that might have to do with the actual ink pad as well. This is a Catherine Pooler ink pad. They are very juicy, so a lot of ink did stay on the stamp. And see, this one is just a memento ink, and I didn't quite get the same effect. So I had started doing the double stamping onto the card, and I can see a lot of stamps there where that darker edge from stamping off the side of the card. So I did go back to stamping off on the scrap paper before I went back onto the 3x4 card. But all in all, I'd say probably the 8 cards took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes to stamp. It wasn't a long time. It was a fun process using all of that colour and not really having to think too much about it. I guess when I try and do that more rigid repeat stamping, it does require a lot of concentration, which I often fail at, let's be honest. And so this one was kind of just stamping fun. So even if you're not doing this project, this is kind of a fun thing to do. You could make filler cards or even journaling cards for your project life or pocket pages. It's just a fun activity if you want to do something a little bit crafty but not put too much thought and effort into it. So I have I just did my sort of journaling digitally rather than typing it out. I wanted to make sure it was all going to fit on these 3x4 cards, which aren't cards, they're just paper. I printed out just one sheet and trimmed it down into 3x4s. And I'm just going to match them, I guess, with some of the stuff I've already stamped. So obviously the first thing that I have to do is match the stories to my stamped cards. And because I've done that stamping beforehand, the stamped cards or the colours that I want to use or the chipboards that I want to pick to match the stories aren't all necessarily a perfect match. But I'm not too concerned. I never really would have got a perfect match because I had those sort of limited stamps to work with. So rough enough is good enough, and that's what I'm going to do. Now, as far as the placement goes, I'm not worrying too much about like which story goes where. I'm just going to alternate top and bottom. So the first one, the story's going at the bottom, and the second one, it's going at the top. So when there's this spread inside, which there will be for this story, there's that kind of diagonal sort of cross of stories and stamping, so not all the stampings next to each other. And I'm using that same recipe for all of them. So when the story's at the bottom, the chipboard is at the bottom of the stamped card and vice versa. It just is a nice kind of pleasing effect to the eye. And I was really pleased with the way my stories came out this year. They're not too negative, not too, yeah, it's just, I feel like this year I've had obviously a lot more time to kind of think about the habits that I'm forming and the stories that I'm telling myself, that just that extra time to kind of work on internal things, I guess. And so I am really grateful for that. And I think because of that, the result is that the stories were all a little bit more positive. So that's this month done. Super quick, super simple. I mean, quick to put together. There was a lot of kind of thinking involved in it, but it's simple. I did pull off that chipboard so it's not thick. Fits in my album. 4 months to go. Where is this time going? Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. I hope you are doing okay wherever you are, whether you're participating in this one little word journey or not. I know we're all on a journey this year, and I hope you're doing okay. So I will see you again really soon. Bye.